Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Blockchains like Bitcoin SV are enabling the next evolution of internet businesses. Joining me to discuss is Jimmy Nguyen, founding president of the Bitcoin Association. Jimmy, it's great to see you. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Good to see you again. It's been a while.
It certainly has. What are blockchains helping businesses to do, and are you continuing to see adoption and deployment of applications?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because it forces us to sit back and understand, well, what is a blockchain in the first place? All it is a distributed way to record data, right? It's a new way of recording data that we used to keep in book, in ledger forms. And with a blockchain, it's done in a distributed way so that instead of one person or company keeping the data ledger, many people around the world can keep a node that has the data ledger. And our vision of a blockchain is that it must be public, not permission, meaning that anyone can access and read or write data to the chain. With that, you can do various functions. You can record data to the chain. You can transfer data between me, for example, to you, or between companies. You can do computation with data. And then most importantly, you can monetize the data. And that's what Bitcoin, the original blockchain, was meant to do. In the word there, you see it, bit, data plus coin, money together. So it allows businesses to create applications that automate processes of those functions of data, storing, transferring, computing, and monetizing data. So any business application that benefits from having data on an open chain where anyone can access it and automating tasks like such as in a smart contract, or being able to trace supply chain with the origin of products and their shipment at any given time that anyone can see and trust. Those are the types of applications that I think are best done on a blockchain.
Was there any impact from the COVID-19 shutdowns, or did it help to accelerate some of the trends that were in place prior to?
Well, in our Bitcoin SV ecosystem, I think it gave a lot of developers and businesses more time forced at home just to build, right? I think that's important for the blockchain world, building real useful applications. So that was helpful in a backhanded kind of way. But what I'm seeing is a trend not just to cashless payment systems, which people talk about because of COVID, right? People want safer ways to pay without needing physical cards or dirty physical cash. So we're seeing that trend in development with our ecosystem. But I think there's a better combination that's happening. If we have a cashless payment world, everyone needs a digital wallet, such as on your smartphone. But you can combine that with the function of identity and identity management in the same wallet, something that's possible in the Bitcoin SV world, for example, so that the wallet you carry around to use to pay in a cashless way can also be the system that authenticates you, for example, to access your Twitter account or your Facebook account, or give you access to an Airbnb apartment, right, that you might rent through like a keypad. So I think I see COVID as driving a move to a cashless society, but with blockchain, you can take that another step further and add multiple functions to the digital wallet, including identity management.
Tell us about Bitcoin SV and how blockchains like BSV are enabling the next evolution of internet businesses.
So Bitcoin SV is one of the three main competing chains of Bitcoin. Without getting into the politics of it all, there's been just debates for over many years in the Bitcoin world about whether the Bitcoin blockchain should scale. Our view of it is that the people who took control of the BTC chain, what people think of Bitcoin, crippled the network by keeping the block size small. We have a very different vision, and we think that's the vision Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin's creator, always articulated: scale Bitcoin big. So Bitcoin SV's thesis is very simple. You take the original Bitcoin protocol, which we restored through a hard fork in February of this year called Genesis, going back to the beginning of Satoshi's original design, and then having unbounded scaling, which means that there's no preset code or limit in our software for what the block size or the transaction capacity should be. It should be up to market forces. It's capitalist, it's just economic incentives. So we are scaling big. Our network now is comfortably doing about 2,800 transactions per second, well more than Ethereum or Hyperledger, and certainly BTC. Next year, we think we can get to about 50,000 transactions a second. That would surpass the Visa payment network. That also means because we have much bigger blocks and bigger scaling, super low transaction fees. 1/100th of a US cent now on Bitcoin SV, much less than even when I spoke with you about a year ago. Compare that to the Ethereum network, which is getting very congested now because of the DeFi craze. A lot of people are buying these Ethereum-based tokens. And transaction fees are hitting 6 to 8, even 12, I think, dollars a transaction now on Ethereum. That's not how you build a blockchain network that will support large volumes of business transactions. And so Ethereum has been trying to solve its scaling challenges by the design of Ethereum 2.0, which is having its troubles in testing. So our simple vision is one blockchain that scales very big, that powers all of the world's business applications, as well as consumer applications and payments. So it's a big blockchain, a big vision for the world.
How many companies and services are being built on BSV right now?
Yeah, that continues to grow, and there's a company that's a support of ours who keeps track of this, and they publish a chart periodically. As of a few months ago, there were over 400 known different ventures, companies, and projects. There's some duplicates in there because one company may have more than one project or service, but I would say certainly there's in the several hundreds around the world that range from small startups to bigger enterprises, such as a company that's growing here in the United States called EHR Data in the healthcare field, that was formed by a team that had 40 years of success in the pharmaceutical software industry and sold their company recently to a Canadian public company. And so we see a range from startups to more sizable companies, but the ecosystem is very robust and it's growing rapidly.
Are there any use cases of data that validates BSV's approach? I mean, you mentioned before that you can get transaction costs down to 1/100th of a cent because of that scalability, but what other use cases are you looking at?
Sure, there's a number that are already live in the social media context. There's several platforms, including one called Twitch and others, one called Paoping and one in China, where it basically requires you, instead of tweeting for free, which leads to bot accounts and a lot of fraudulent accounts, you actually have to pay to post a message or to comment or like someone's message. And it allows the sending of micropayments, tiny amounts, 1 cent, 2 cents, 4 cents, as well as recording the data of your content to the chain. So that's live. There's a game that's about to go into open beta called Crypto Fights. It's kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons style game where you make an avatar, I make an avatar, we fight through rolls of dice, and you can have virtual items. They've now moved the tokenization of their in-game items from Ethereum's engine token to Bitcoin SV because they needed a chain that had bigger data scale and super cheap transaction fees to create a trading marketplace where people can trade that really cheaply and quickly. They're also going to record the battle moves to the chain so that you can audit and make sure in the esports world, players aren't cheating in this world of esports betting. And the EHR Data example is probably one of the greatest ones. They formed a company to create a blockchain platform to take our healthcare records and give you as the patient power over your medical data. Right now, particularly in the United States, our healthcare data is kept in silos. Your primary care physician may have records, your dentist, your surgeon or specialist, and they're using the idea of putting the data in a global electronic health record on chain, encrypted, so your privacy is protected, and allowing you as the patient to authorize who gets access to it. And they could even pay you, like a medical research company might pay you small amounts of BSV micropayments to access your data so you can monetize it as a patient. And most importantly, their first test that they are preparing for is to use the platform to help combat the opioid addiction crisis in the United States, which is happening because people often get prescriptions to pain-killing drugs. They use too much, they get addicted. That happens sometimes because doctors at the moment of medical care may not have access to your real-time complete medical history. Or a pharmacy, when they are filling a prescription, may not know you have filled another one in another state or another city on a different network. By breaking down those data silos and giving you, the consumer, power over your own healthcare data, it allows all of those players in the medical value chain to be able to access a real-time record of your data and hopefully improve medical care decisions that will help stem the opioid addiction crisis. So they have a test project with nChain, the big research and development company in our ecosystem, to launch a platform on this to move pharmaceutical prescription data for opioids onto the chain. And if they do that at scale, they need a big blockchain that can handle lots and lots of transactions, because there's 400,000 opioid prescriptions written a day in the United States.
Yeah. So your ultimate vision, it's MetaNet, as you would call it. Realistically, when do you think it can start to be practically applied at scale? Are we 3 to 5 years out? Do you think it could be a little bit sooner? Do you think that there's still more work to do?
I think we're at the beginning of test projects this year and next year, such as the EHR data example, such as some of these social media examples. And realistically, I think blockchain in general is a good 2 to 4 or 5 years from achieving really massive adoption. What we're focused on, having now restored the protocol of Bitcoin and continuing Satoshi's original journey, is scaling, doing more work to make sure the network can handle even larger volumes of transactions, bringing that transaction fee even lower. We think 1/100th of a cent is still too high, and supporting the growth of ventures and businesses that create these great applications. So the MetaNet is our idea for a better, more commercial internet for users as well as businesses. Right now, all of our services on the internet, most of them at least, are free, such as Facebook, Twitter, Google, but it means we have to deal with the ad and data-based sell culture, right, of online service providers, which has caused a lot of controversy. Imagine a world where you actually had to pay to do an internet search on a browser, a small amount, 1 cent, which you can do with a Bitcoin SV micropayment, but your search results were better because there were no sponsored ads. Imagine a world where you could have people pay to send you an email and get your attention by moving emails higher up in your inbox to get rid of spam and other clutter. It's the idea of monetizing in some way all of our online and digital activity by exchanging small micropayments between me, you, businesses that want your attention, that want access to your data. They can pay you 2 cents, 5 cents, which is not possible in today's internet world because of the traditional payment structures. It costs too much to send a payment on the internet. So this vision of the MetaNet on Bitcoin SV is using the Bitcoin SV blockchain to manage the data that we use every day, but to enable the ability to send tiny amounts of payment to monetize all that data with our online activity. So it's a really big vision. It's also a vision that requires, in our view, one global blockchain, just like we operate on one single internet. That's our view of the world. That's why we view Bitcoin as a protocol, a data network protocol, a rule set like IP protocol that should be stable and allowed to massively scale. I think we're looking at a few years before we see this happen at scale. Over the next year, I'm excited that a number of projects and ventures will be showing some great example use cases.
All right, Jimmy, great to have you with us as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thanks so much. And if I could give a quick plug for our CoinGeek conference, which is coming up September 30th, October 1st and 2nd out of New York and London, a broadcast studio connected conference. You can find out more information at coingeekconference.com and learn much more about Bitcoin SV.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much for that. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.